Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele. A couple things I want to get to right off the bat. I want to apologize for yesterday. Those people that were watching. Yeah, StreamYard was acting up, and it wasn't my internet service because I have one of the best internets out there. So it was definitely StreamYard. Um, and I wouldn't be so upset about it, but number one, I was trying to bring this show to you guys, and number two, I pay for it, right? So it's one of those things where, if you pay for something, you want to get the service, and I wasn't getting the service. So I contacted them. I decided not to do the show yesterday, and it was just didn't work out. So, anyways, that's benefit for you guys because you guys are going to be getting a bigger and better show today. Um, we have a lot of stuff to get to. So I think we should just jump right into it. So, as I said in the tease, for those who saw it, Netflix is in the news for all the wrong reasons. And some of them we knew that was coming, but we'll get to that stuff much later. So, one other thing I wanted to say was that you guys had made your choices. So, anybody that is not familiar with Rewatch Wednesdays and Flash Mob Mondays, I will be doing monthly videos. You can head on over to patreon.com. And it's only two levels. There's only one that's $5. You'll get Mob Mondays. And if you get subscribed for $10 a month, it's 10. You'll be getting both Mob Mondays and Rewatch Wednesdays. You guys have made your decisions, okay? And it's going to be The Untouchables, the 1987 Brian De Palma classic. We're going to stay on De Palma. And so the other one is going to be Training Day, the 2001 classic with Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. So those are the two I'm going to be doing for the month of May. Um, so don't forget, guys, I do have a Mission Impossible rewatch series that's going to be coming up. I will be recording the first one within the next few days. I've already sat down and I've got my notes done. Um, I've already watched Mission Impossible. I plan on watching in the next couple days. And so those are going to be dropping once a month. Once a week, beginning on June 2nd. So we'll go Mission Impossible on the 2nd, Mission Impossible on the 9th, 2 on the 2nd, on the 9th, and so on. And that's all going to lead up to Dead Reckoning. Okay, now that we have all that house cleaning out of the way, let's jump into the show today, which we have a big one of. So as the first story of the day involves a story that's a little follow-up that basically happened a few weeks ago, and it was right after the release of a film, and I'm talking about Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is, we haven't heard a peep since what happened with the arrest 3 weeks ago, and now that we know a little bit more, a lot of people and a lot of companies have decided to, whether it's withdraw their, um, shows or what have you. He recently just did, a commercial for the Army, excuse me, and basically the Army withdrew that. So now we know that um, he has been dropped by not only several other projects, but his PR. So this comes to us from Hollywood Reporter, and it says Jonathan Majors dropped by Entertainment 360 amidst assault allegations. Jonathan Majors is no longer repped by management Entertainment 360, and the move coming as the actor faces criminal charges in New York, sources confirmed to the Hollywood Reporter. The public relations firm, The Lead Company, also stepped aside last month and is no longer repping him, sources tell THR. Majors was arrested on suspicion of strangulation, assault, and harassment in New York on March 26th after a woman sustained minor injuries in what police described as a domestic dispute. Majors was charged with 2 counts of assault in the third degree, aggravated harassment in the second degree, attempted assault in the third degree, and harassment in the second degree. Majors, through an attorney, has denied any wrongdoing. Jonathan Majors is completely innocent and is probably the victim of an altercation with a woman he knows, the actor's criminal defense lawyer said. Told the THR in a statement at the time. We are quickly gathering and presenting evidence to the district attorney with the expectation that all charges will be dropped imminently. Those charges have not gone away. However, his next court appearance is scheduled for May 8th. Majors, who has been one of the Hollywood's top up-and-coming actors, has filmed a role in season 2 of Marvel's Loki as villain Kang the Conqueror, where he is said to appear in about half the episodes. The series is expected to run later this year. Kang is slated to be a big part of Marvel's future plans, serving as a title character in the next Avengers film, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, which is dated for May 2nd, 2025. The actor recently starred in Creed 3 and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. He also has the Sundance Drama Magazine dreams to open the award season friendly date of December 8th from Searchlight, which acquired the project before Major's arrest. Majors remains rep by WME, which Deadline was the first to report this. Okay, let's talk about this because there's a lot to digest here. Number one, let's get this out in the open. He is innocent until proven guilty. Okay, it goes without saying. And the fact is that we live in a society today where everybody jumps on everybody the minute something happens. Now, that being said, okay, this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. We haven't heard anything. We've had he's had a couple projects drop. The United States Army, as I said, dropped the campaign. He is set to appear in season 2 of Loki. And this he was just in Creed 3. He was just in the new Ant-Man. This raises a lot of interesting questions, okay, to say the least. Number one, what happens? Okay. If he is found guilty, he deserves everything he gets. I'm going to say that right now. Okay. If in fact that these charges are dropped in some capacity, or he is exonerated in some capacity, and it proves without a shadow of a doubt, okay, that he is innocent, then I think what we need to do as film fans and people is give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. What all of these companies and what all of these sponsors are doing right now is they're distancing themselves because, let's face it, they want to be safe. They want to be safe because they don't want to be looked upon as, because they're a business. They're going to lose business. So all of that being said, I think that we have to give him the benefit of the doubt until the evidence is overwhelming. And right now, we don't know what it is. We weren't there in that cab. We weren't there in that bar. We don't know what happened. Okay. Now, if there's a video in the cab that exonerates him, or the text messages, or whatever else, we'll figure that out when the time comes. That being said, he has been dropped. And like I said, it's a business. They don't want to be associating with him. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. So I think the major takeaway here is this. We need, especially on social media, because I'm on Twitter quite a bit, and the tweets that just come out say, he's guilty, put him away. We don't know. So I think once we get more information, once we get more details, then we can say definitively. Now there's another thing too. Marvel has, put all their eggs in this actor. What happens if he is guilty? Well, they're going to have to go look for somebody else. Problem is, that he's in about half of season 2 of Loki. How do they handle that? Okay. So I think the writers at Marvel are going to have to get very creative and figure out what's going on. If I were them, okay, I wouldn't have him be in any cutscenes or anything else until maybe, 6 months from now, until this whole thing blows over. So, and then you just bring a new Kang in, and that's that. So, it is what it is. Um, I, I, I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other because I can't say he's guilty or he's not guilty. So we have to see what the information provides. I think that the biggest thing, like I said, is on social media. I think because on social media he's guilty until proven innocent, and I think that's the biggest thing we've got to understand too. People are very, very quick to judge and jump to a judgment, and we need to just take a breath, take a step back, and figure out what's going on. So, and it's truly sad because he was the perennial guy, the hottest guy in Hollywood, hands down. I mean, you just take a look at this picture here. You had Magazine Dreams on the left, which probably he was going to get an Academy Award nomination for. He may still, he may not. Well, I mean, depending on what this whole thing entails. You have Creed 3 in the middle, which was a huge, huge win for you know Amazon. Okay, I mean they're going to be developing a whole Creed, verse going in Amazon. Michael B. Jordan being the EP there and the creator, and then of course you have Kang, you know, Kang the Conqueror here over here on the right, and just he was going to be the next big bat. So we'll see what happens. I hope, and I say this, sincerely, I hope everything, I hope he's innocent of these charges. I hope. Um, but if he did it, then he did it, and you know what? He deserves everything he gets. So, um, yeah. What do you guys think about the whole Jonathan Major situation? What did you think when you first heard it? How do you or how did you react? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, let's move on. So yesterday I did a story about an actor, Nicholas Hoult, that he really wanted. He had a couple of opportunities for roles, and he didn't get them, and subsequently, he kind of was. I won't say kind of. He could have been a huge, huge star, right? So he missed out on the Batman. He missed out on um, Mission Impossible, the new Mission Impossible. He was going to be a major villain in Episode 8, and so because he had contractual agreements, I guarantee you he'll be fine. I guarantee you he'll be fine. He's, even Tom Cruise says, look, he looks good. He's got him on speed dial. My guess is he will absolutely be getting a call from Tom Cruise and say, hey, listen, I got another project. You want to be in it? So that was Nicholas Hoult. So just today, one of the better actresses of our time, who doesn't get a lot of recognition, is Rachel McAdams. Rachel McAdams is a great actress, and she has taken roles that, let's face it, would not have. They're not the big bombastic roles that everybody thinks about, but she's damn good in them. Okay, um, I remember her seeing her in Shut Eye many years ago, and that was, I mean, her acting in that was fantastic. Of course, you have Doctor Strange. You know, anyways, the reason I bring this up is because she had a shot to be in 3 different films. Okay, so according to Variety, she turned down Iron Man, she turned down Casino Royale, and she turned down Mission Impossible. All within Mission Impossible 3, all within a 2-year span. and she says, I feel guilty. As I said, this comes from Variety. Nicholas Hoult recently made headlines for revealing he lost roles in The Batman, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Top Gun Maverick in a row. But that's nothing compared to the A-list projects Rachel McAdams consecutively turned down in the mid-aughts. As revealed in her new profile, McAdams turned down offers from The Devil Wears Prada, Casino Royale, Mission Impossible 3, Iron Man, and Get Smart in the 2 year period where she moved back to Canada following a rise in Hollywood with Mean Girls and The Notebook. There's certainly things I wish I had done, McAdams said. I step back and go, well, that was the right person for that. All 5 movies which McAdams rejected, released between 2006 and 2008, ended up being box office hits, with Casino Royale reigniting the Bond franchise with Daniel Craig in the role. Presumably, we can imagine she was up for Eva Green's role. And the first Iron Man launching the MCU. McAdams waited to enter the superhero universe until 2016's Doctor Strange and reprised her role as Dr. Christina Palmer in last year's Multiverse of Madness. I felt guilty for not capitalizing on the opportunities that I was being given because I knew I was in such a lucky spot, McAdams said about turning down these films and taking a 2 year break from Hollywood as her career was surging. But I also knew it wasn't quite living with my personality and what I needed to do to stay sane. There were definitely some anxious moments of wondering if I was just throwing it all away and why I was doing that. It was taking years to understand what it's taken years to understand what I intuitively was doing wrong. Adams harbors no regrets, and many of her films, such as Mean Girls and The Notebook, remain classics. Mean Girls is currently getting the musical treatment for a new film based on Tina Fey's Tony winning Broadway adaptation. Renee Rapp is stepping in the roles of McAdams' character, Regina George, after playing the part on Broadway. I don't see a way to shoehorn us in, McAdams said about cameoing in the musical film. If Tina can figure it out, I'm there for sure. McAdams' next feature is the Judy Blume's adaptation, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, opening in theaters April 28th from Lionsgate. McAdams has had these interactions often, as the interest in her early film careers never waned, especially from Mean Girls enters production for its third iteration, a big screen adaptation of the movie's musical treatment. There's certainly something like, I wish I had done that, but she says, there's certainly things like, I wish I had done that, but the success of these projects, she says, makes us think twice about the potential casting. I step back and go, that was the right person for that. Of what ultimately became a 2 year break, McAdams said, I felt guilty for not capitalizing on the opportunities that I was being given because I knew I was such a lucky spot. But I also knew it was um, but I also knew it wasn't quite living with my personality and what I need to stay sane. There were definitely some. Okay, so basically, this is the same quote. So let's talk about this real quick. I think that the thing is, you have to do what's right for you. Okay, and if she turned down these roles, then she turned down the roles. She had to do what was right for her at the time. And I think that she had no clue that these were going to blow up. I mean, she would have been in 2 of the Bond films, okay? Quantum of Solace, and, well, actually, one, only Casino Royale. And she didn't know about Iron Man. I mean, presumably she would have done I imagine she would have been Pepper Potts, okay? So, but you have to do what's best for you at the time. And if she felt like she needed a break, then she felt like she needed a break. Um, and the other question you have to ask too is this: how, if she had been in all these, let's say she had done a couple of these films, right? Mission Impossible 3 and, you know, uh, Iron Man, what? How would she have played against the person we have now? So, for example, Could you imagine Rachel McAdams as Pepper Potts? Or could you imagine her as, um, I don't know, you know, um, Eva Green's character? So, I mean, it really depends. I'm happy she took the break. I mean, obviously, there will be plenty of other roles. And by the way, this screenshot I have here of her was her in Spotlight. It's one Best Picture. I mean, so let's not. Her performance in Spotlight was amazing. She's been in movies like Red Eye and everything else, Doctor Strange. So she was in the MCU, just not in the biggest capacity. Yeah, you have regret about something, but you don't know how big it's going to be, right? You just don't. You know it's a decent role, but you don't know how big it's going to be. I think that the fact that she did turn down these roles, and the fact that I couldn't imagine her playing Pepper Potts, or Eva Green not being Eva Green's. So I think she did the right thing. And let's face it, money is money. You can always make money. It's a matter of how your mentality is and staying sane and everything else. What do you guys think? Did she do the right thing? Do you think she should feel regret for it? And my last question to you guys today is, could you imagine Rachel McAdams playing Pepper Potts, or being in Casino Royale, or Mission Impossible 3, or any of those other roles? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so we move from what was to what is. Um, so we have a film out in Super Mario that is dominated, absolutely dominated the box office. Um, this movie is just making money hand over fist. They're having to print money for it, all that fun stuff. Um, and it looks like it's going to dominate the um, the box office again this week. Um, so this comes of this comes from Variety. It says Super Mario to rule over Evil Dead Rise and Guy Ritchie's Covenant. The Super Mario movie will rule once again in its third week at the box office. In maintaining the number one spot, the film the family film is expected to take down two newcomers: the supernatural horror Evil Dead Rise and actual war thriller Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, as well as A24's mind-bending Beau is Afraid, which is starring Joaquin Phoenix, which is expanding nationwide. Universal and Illumination's animated Mario adventure has grossed $366.3 million domestic to date. In the next few days, it will surpass Minions as the highest grossing animated film of the pandemic era. With 720 with $724 million globally, it already stands as the biggest movie of the year so far. Now in its third outing at the domestic box office, Mario is looking to bring in roughly between 45 to 50 million dollars, a massive result at this point in its theatrical run. In terms of new releases, the blood-soaked Evil Dead Rise is projected to lead the way with 15 to 20 million from 3,300 North American theaters, while some are estimating those ticket sales could rise to 25 million or more. Elsewhere, the rated R Guy Ritchie The Covenant is hoping to make $6 million from about 2,600 locations, while the very rated R Beau is Afraid is similarly targeting single digits from 962 theaters. Evil Dead Rise is the fifth installment of Warner Brothers and New Line's Evil Dead franchise, which began in 1981 with Sam Raimi's low-budget thriller. Its first entry in the series in 10 years since 2013's Evil Dead reboot, which grossed $97.5 million on a $17 million budget. Like House Party and Magic Mike's Last Dance before it, the movie was originally set to be released on HBO Max, but was granted a traditional theatrical release by Warner Brothers. Evil Dead Rise has been well received by critics, holding a 95% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. In Variety's review, critic Joe Layden described director Lee Cronin's take as a quote, imaginative scary, end quote, and highlighted the film's special effects as quote, claustrophobic and gasp inducing shocking, end quote. The gory story centers around two estranged sisters as they attempt to survive as from save their family from demonic creatures. Ritchie's latest film has also received positive reviews, though it may be harder to sell to moviegoers because adult dramas have been a hit or miss at the box office. That's to say, there's nothing of a 2 hour depiction of a war in Afghanistan. Jake Gyllenhaal stars in The Covenant as a United States sergeant who tries to repay his debt to a man who saved his life. Um, Variety's critic called it one of the best directors working, Ritchie, and a born again filmmaker. Covenant is in another Ritchie underworld caper he wrote, referring to the filmmaker's range of action thrillers like The Gentleman, Wrath of Man, or Operation Fortune. But The Covenant, he says, does unveil something new, Ritchie, the contemporary classics. Okay, let's talk about it. I think the fact is that um, I think the fact is that we are. This movie is just unbelievable, and the fact that it's going to make almost $50 million this weekend, and it opened right at the right time. Okay, so it made 83 or 84, and now it's going to make between 45 to 50. It's just unbelievable. Um, we're going to look back at this movie here, and basically, it's going to be one of those 4 or 5 movies that really helped the theaters. I mean, Spider-Man: No Way Home, and you've got Top Gun: Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water. This is going to be right in that conversation. It released perfectly, and it's going to make over $1 billion. It's just a matter of time. So, and it's not only going to have this week, but the next week after that, because Guardians doesn't open until May 5th. So, I think it's going to be fine. I do want to go see The Covenant. I haven't seen a movie since Air, which was a couple weeks ago. But yeah, I think this is going to be really, really fun, and it's just going to keep going. And you guys, you're not even talking about the VOD sales. Once this hits streaming, can you imagine? It's just going to pick up more and more and more and more steam. So this is going to be really, really good, and it's going to make a lot of money, and it's going to continue to make a lot of money. I can't wait to see this, and yeah, I might actually wait for streaming just because it is going to be such a quick turnaround. Um, because I think that Universal realizes, hey, listen, once May 5th comes, we're not going to make any more money. So don't be shocked in the next week or two. Probably not, obviously not this week, maybe not next week. Don't be shocked if in the next week or two you see a release date for Mario on video on demand. So yeah, I mean, so the question is, guys, how much money do you think this is going to make? We know it's going to make over $1 billion. How many times have you seen Mario? What brings you back to the theater to see Mario? Is it its running time? Is it the colors? Is it Mario himself, the whole IP? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay. So we move from one streamer to another. So this is fascinating because one of the biggest movies of this upcoming year, and I've talked about it on the show many times, and it's going to be premiering at Cannes in competition, by the way, is Killers of the Flower Moon. And this originally had a release date, or not release date. Well, it's got a release date further on in the year, but it originally had a running time of 3 hours and 54 minutes. You go, what? 3 hours and 4 hours? Okay. So I knew that I said, look, there's a good chance Martin is going to edit this down. Okay. So when we see this, this is not going to be 3 hours and 54 minutes. Now, don't forget his last film, um, The Irishman, was 3 hours and 29 minutes, 3 hours and 3.5 hours. So he's used to doing this. Um, that all being said, we got the running time for Killers of the Flower Moon. Okay. And it is clocking in at 3 hours and 26 minutes, which, by the way, is 3 minutes shorter than The Irishman. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So this comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. Get ready for quite a ride. The official running time of Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon is 3 hours and 26 minutes, insiders confirm. From Apple Original Films, the Western crime drama starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone is one of the longest running movies in modern history, in modern times, according to data from ComScore. Scorsese's latest film, The Irishman, was actually 3 minutes longer, which I just made mention of. But the 2019 movie did not get a full blown release since it was primarily made for the streaming service. And guys, stay tuned because we got a ton of stuff coming up about Netflix in the near future, like today, right after this story. So stay tuned. Killers of the Flower Moon is a different proposition. Apple is partnering with Paramount in order to give Scorsese's high profile film a traditional release in cinemas across the globe before making it available at a yet to be announced date on Apple TV. Hollywood has been buzzing about Killer's length after reported it was close to 4 hours. Well, we know it's not going to be that long now. For any distributor, a long movie means fewer showtimes. Yet three of the four top grossing movies of all time at the worldwide box office have a running time of 3 or more hours. Number one is Avatar at 2 hours and 41 minutes, followed by Avengers Endgame at 3 hours and 2 minutes, and Avatar The Way of Water at 3 hours and 12 minutes, not to mention Titanic at 3 hours and 14 minutes, according to ComScore. James Cameron, who directed Titanic and the two Avatar movies, is known for turning out the longer movies, as is Scorsese, whose 2013 Oscar nominated The Wolf of Wall Street ran 3 hours. The movie's running time includes credits, which can take up to 10 minutes. So I'll get to all this stuff once I'm done with the article. Flower Moon reunites Scorsese with DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. The film will make its premiere at the Cannes Film Festival next month before opening in cinemas in mid-October. The film, which Scorsese and screenwriter Eric Roth adapted from David Grant's best-selling 2017 nonfiction book, centers on an FBI investigation on a series of murders on the Osage people that took place in Oklahoma in the early 1920s. It became known as the Reign of Terror after oil was discovered on tribal land. DiCaprio is in his sixth team with Scorsese, playing Ernest Burkhart, the nephew of cattleman William Hale, played by De Niro. Gladstone, who is a Blackfeet and uh, of heritage, first broke out in Kelly's Reichardt's 2017 film Certain Women, playing Molly Kyle, who played an Osage woman who was inherited with an oil fortune. The cast does include co-star Jesse Plemons as Tom White, a former Texas Ranger who's investigating, and Kata Jane Myers, not to mention Julia Dion and others. Okay, so let's talk about this. There's a lot to get to. Number one, we have Martin Scorsese is an old-time filmmaker. And I say old-time, you got to remember, he started first making films back in the 1970s. Okay, I think he's 84, 85 years old. Number two, okay, so he doesn't care about length. That's not his MO. He wants to tell a story. So it doesn't matter if it's 4 hours or 2 hours and 10 minutes or whatever. Now, 3 hours and 29 or 24 minutes, or 26 minutes rather. Here's the thing. So there's something in the business called a TRT, or a total running time. That's from the very first frame it comes on the screen to the very last credit. Okay, so if you sit and you watch the credits, usually credits run your average, if you watch it all the way through, it's going to be between 5 to 7 minutes. Now, it could be longer, and it may be longer. I mean, you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people working on these films. So they want to give everybody the credit they deserve, especially in a Marvel film. Guys, those credits can be up to 10 minutes. So if they see, a Marvel film's, I don't know, 2 hours and 18 minutes, the last 10 minutes may be credits. Okay. Number two. Now, the article cites that it has some of the longest, four of the longest films out there were done over 3 hours. And they're absolutely correct. Okay. You have to look at the big picture, though. Number one, okay, Avatar was a whole new technology. Nobody had seen anything like Avatar before, ever. Ever. So we were all enthralled back in 09. Like, oh my God, what is this? Okay. Number two, it talks about Avengers Endgame. You have to understand something. Avengers Endgame was the culmination of a 15-year journey. Nobody had ever attempted what they did. Okay. So actually, I said 15. It's quite a long journey. Okay. I think Iron Man came out in 08. So you're talking about an 11-year journey over 25 or 26 films. Okay. Nobody had ever attempted that. So yes, and don't forget, Avengers Infinity War, which by the way, I'm going to be doing a video on a couple weeks because it is going to be the 5-year anniversary of Avengers Infinity War. Anyways, that was the first part of the story. So that was 2 hours and 48 minutes in itself. So really about 2.5 hours. So that was almost a 5-hour saga right there. Okay, so that's the second part. Number three, if you look at the only movie there that isn't a sequel is Titanic. Okay? Endgame was a sequel. So The Way of Water was a sequel. Okay? And like I said, Avatar was the perennial, oh my God moment in 09. We had never seen this before. The fact that this is going to be 3 hours and 26 minutes doesn't worry me at all. As a matter of fact, I'm in. And you say, well, that's longer running times. That doesn't matter. If you're enthralled in a movie, you'll sit there and it will go quickly. There's a difference between a 3.5 hour movie, you wanting to pull your fingernails out, and then a 3.5 hour movie, you're like, okay, I'm in. It is Leonardo DiCaprio, who's the Academy Award winner. It is Robert De Niro, who is a multiple time Academy Award winning. And so, actually, is it worth seeing? Yeah. I mean, look, nobody's seen it yet, to be frank, Metal. So, I don't know. So a couple of, to answer your question. Number one, so Martin Scorsese has a certain type of film. If you look at his career for the past 40 years, okay, he has a type. He's a gangster type of director type of film. So whether it's, Mean Streets or Raging Bull or The Departed or, Goodfellas or whatever else, that is his MO usually. The Irishman. So that's what he usually focuses on, but he can tell other stories, like The Wolf of Wall Street, like The Last Temptation of Christ. So he can do films. If you're a fan of Martin Scorsese films, I would say definitely. Absolutely. I mean, one of his, and I said this the other day to somebody, one of the greatest movies that is so underrated was way back in the 1980s was The Color of Money. People don't remember. He directed The Color of Money. Okay? I mean, Paul Newman, Tom Cruise. Anyways, but the point I'm getting at is this. If you like Martin Scorsese's films, if you like filmmakers that tell a story, if you like the long form type of format, yes, I would say yes. Because anybody can sit through an Avengers Endgame, okay, or an Avatar: The Way of Water. It's can you sit down for 3 hours and be enthralled by a story like this? And if it's as good as advertised, I think so. I really, really do think so. So I think it's worth seeing. But getting back to the point, I think that it's Scorsese. He to me is one of the top. I mean, you talk about Mount Everest. He is one of the guys on Mount Everest, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I mean Coppola, Spielberg, Scorsese, and then you could put anybody else you want in that fourth slot. So this isn't something to be worried about. Um, and look, at the end of the day, this is going to be an awards film. I mean, Apple is not. You got to understand something too. Apple is not worried about losing money with this. This is not like, oh my God, we're going to lose money. Like Air, for example. I saw somebody the other day said, well, Air is going to lose out. Air is going to lose, $70 million because it was on a $90 million budget and only made. I said, but they're not looking at that. Yes, it is a business. I understand that. But no, Amazon doesn't care because they have so many other things. I mean, Amazon, because don't forget, you got to remember, Amazon owns MGM, all of their libraries. So that's why they're coming out with all these things like RoboCop and everything else. And we touched on that last week. But Apple doesn't care about that. They have so much. They have already come out and said they are going to put $1 billion into feature filmmaking. So the short answer to your question is yes, it is worth seeing. Is it going to be one of Scorsese's best? That's yet to be determined because, I mean, film is subjective, but moreover, it is a long movie. So, but if you like The Irishman, if you like the length of that, I think you'll enjoy this. So that's what I would say to that. What do you think? What do you guys think about this running time? Do you think it's too long? Do you think it's too short? What do you think about 3-hour movies dominating our culture in the last 5 or 6 years? Do you have a problem with it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay. Now the fun begins. So, the biggest streaming service out there is Netflix. They are the ones that invented streaming. They've been around for 25, 30 years, and they are huge. Now, I all that preface being said, the fact is this: I don't like their business methods. And there are 4 stories we're going to be talking about here that really do not bode well for Netflix. Okay. So the first one, okay, is where do I want to start? Well, let's do the good news first. Okay. Let's do the good news. So the good news, okay. Well, I wouldn't even say good news. None of this is good news. Okay. So let's just start here. Okay. So as everybody knows, Netflix has come out and said that password sharing is going to stop. So they just had an earnings meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact. And that's why all of this stuff came out yesterday. So so according to THR, okay, they have revealed the time in which the password sharing is going to stop. Okay. So Netflix is going to begin rolling out paid sharing in the United States and other countries in the second quarter of this year, the streaming giant announced on Tuesday. In January, Netflix confirmed it would be cracking down more broadly on account sharing after conducting trials in Latin America. The crackdown began in earnest in early February, with Netflix rolling out, quote, paid sharing, quote, end quote, plans in Canada, New Zealand, Portugal, and Spain. As part of those plans, the primary Netflix user has the option to add 2 more people outside of their homes to their plan for an additional $7.99 per month in Canada, $7.99 in New Zealand, $3.99 in Portugal, and $5.99 as far as euros in Spain. Netflix did not reveal pricing for the United States or other countries that are part of the broader Q2 rollout, but said that the pricing will be higher in more affluent countries. So it's going to be higher here in America. We're we're looking at we're looking at it in a market by market basis, but obviously we're testing different pricing in the last rollouts that we tested in Latin America. That gives you a sense about how we're thinking about it. You know what optimum pricing is, especially in more affluent countries. Co-CEO Greg Peters said on the earnings video. Netflix is, quote, pleased with the results, end quote, from Q1, but decided to shift the timing of their broader launch in order to realize some of the earnings learnings from the early markets, including how to have access of Netflix out of the home. We are pleased with the results of their Q1 launches in Canada, New Zealand, Portugal, and Spain, strengthening our confidence that we have the right approach. As with Latin America, we see a cancel reaction in each market when we announce the news, which impacts near-term member growth. But borrowers start to activate their own accounts and existing members as an add member accounts. We see increasing acquisitions and revenue. For example, in Canada, which we believe is a reliable predictor for our paid United States membership base, is now larger than prior to the launch of the paid sharing, and revenue growth has accelerated and is now faster in the United States, Netflix said in a Q1 letter. The motivation for Netflix is to start to use this feature to make more revenue in a move widely praised by Wall Street. However, in January, the company had warned it will likely lead some subscriber cancellations in the short term, with co-CEO Greg Peters noting that will not, quote, be a unusually popular move. Today's widespread account sharing, 100 million plus household, undermines our long-term ability to invest and improve Netflix as we build business. As our terms of limits use of Netflix to a household, we recognize that this is a change of members who share their account more broadly, Netflix said in the January earnings letter. Executives have also said that paid options, as well as the ad-supported tiers, help give subscribers more price points to choose from and could help offset cancellations. Many Wall Street analysts also see paid sharing and the ad tier working in tandem, saying he believes it will be paid in the jump start of the ad tier. Okay, let's talk about this. Here's what you got to wonder. I understand why they're doing it, and it's not a popular decision at all. Now, I don't agree with it. Okay, I don't have Netflix, so it doesn't hurt me in the least. What I will say is this. This is just the wrong move. This is just being greedy, and this is just, you have to understand about streaming services. The only way they get revenue, okay, is by a subscriber like yourself. That's it. That's the only way they get revenue. Now, you say, well, they release films in theaters. Yeah, but, and I have a story later talking about that later on. They don't do that, and it's very limited. And the fact is that they have to figure out other ways to generate revenue. Because the thing is, when you're making $150 million movie like The Irishman, and it only gets a week, or Glass Onion is a perfect example. Okay, when you're getting a movie that's $80-90 million budget, and you only keep it in theater 1 week, they're thinking, oh well, I got to go get Netflix in order to watch it. But the problem is, those people that didn't see it in theaters aren't going to get Netflix because it's not that big of a deal to them. And besides that, their marketing is terrible. Their marketing is one of the worst marketing departments I've ever seen in my life. Now, I don't work there, and I don't, but look at, and there are so many good movies buried in Netflix. You could make a YouTube channel. Seriously, you could make a YouTube channel of all of the good films that don't see the light of day. You know, I have no, I get why they're doing it. And there are going to be a lot of cancellations, but change because people don't like change. And that being said, it's one of those things where I don't really, I don't agree with it. Now, there is another. Um, I will say this much, and we're going to get to this story in a minute. Not all the news is bad news for Netflix. This is a poor move on their part, because they're not even thinking about what's going to happen. A lot of elderly people, that's all they do is watch TV, watch movies, and usually they're not tech savvy. I mean, they're usually on their children's accounts. What are they going to do, right? Just another wrinkle in all this stuff. How so let me ask you guys this. What do you guys think about this? Do you guys share passwords on Netflix? If so, how many people are on your account? And once this does get rolled out, will you pay for Netflix by yourself? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay. So, like I said, not all of the news about Netflix is bad news. Um, So, one of the good things about Netflix is that they were able to get more subscriptions. And the subscriptions, okay, really are one of the driving forces of streaming. So, this actually is going to come from THR as well, okay? And this talks about their subscriber base, okay? So they actually added almost 2 million subscribers during the first quarter. Netflix reporting its earnings for the first time without former CEO Reed Hastings started the year by adding 1.75 million subscribers, bringing up the total global subscribers to 232.5 million. The subscriber growth represented a 4.9%, almost 5% year over year increase compared to the disastrous first quarter of 2022, when the streamer lost subscribers and set off a domino effect of sorts for other media companies that had held up until that point gone all in on streaming. Compared to each quarter, the 232.5 million total subscribers from Q1 is a modest increase compared to Q4. So I should just say this: when we talk about Q1, Q4, we're talking about quarters. So they base their earnings, a business's earnings, is um, the first 3 months of the year. So January, February, March is Q1. Okay, April, May, and June is Q2. July, August, and September is Q3. October, November, December is Q4. The streaming giant closed out 2022 with a total of 230 million and 0.7 global subscribers, representing an addition of 7.66 million subscribers during the fourth quarter after a year that saw the company lose upwards of 970,000 subscribers at one point and face a major stock plummet as a result. But in part to a better than expected fourth quarter and continued subscribers added for the first quarter of this year, Netflix 2023 appears to be in recovery. The company brought in $8.16 billion in revenue during Q1 and is expected to reach $8.24 billion for the current quarter. So we're in Q2 right now. Netflix saw modest growth in the United States-Canada region, adding 100,000 subscribers during the quarter, though some of which appear to have been the cheaper ad-supported level, given that the average revenue per membership dropped from $16.23 in Q4 to $16.18 in Q1. So this is where Wall Street, you have something called an EPS, earnings per share. How much you making per share? That's where that whole thing. This is the business side of it. This is not the sexy side of it, but this is part of the business. The Latin America region underperformed for Netflix as it lost 450,000 subscribers during the first quarter. As Netflix turns to focus its revenue for its quarterly earnings, the streamer is no no longer providing guidance for subscriber numbers. The company is forging ahead with its accounts sharing cracking down, which rolls out. And I just read that article about how they were going to be cracking down on all that. The company is continuing to focus on its advertising business and will host its first upfront presentation on May 17th at the Paris Theater in New York. In the shareholders' letter, Netflix noted that a quote, healthy performance and trajectory, end quote, of its per member advertising economics in the United States, and the streamers will continue, quote, upgrading Netflix ads experience with more streams and include video production, or not production, I'm sorry, quality, to attract a broader range of consumers, end quote. For advertisers that also include the launch of a uh, problem programmer private marketplace to enable buying options for Netflix. Add inventory for microsales sales platform, the letter goes on to say. And as the ad-supported tier for begins a new era for Netflix, the streaming giant is also closing the chapter on another as it pulls back its spending. According ahead of the announcement of its Q1, Netflix said it was bidding adieu to the DVD sales, which we'll get to in a minute. On September 29th, 25 years after sending out the iconic red envelopes. In a blog post, Netflix co-creator Ted Sarandos said the DVD mail has continued to shrink, making it, quote, increasingly difficult, end quote, to continue with the business. This is Sarandos talking. We feel so privileged to have been able to share movie nights with our DVD members for so long, so proud of what our employees achieved, and excited to continue pleasing entertainment fans for many more decades to come. He wrote, to everyone who added a DVD to their queue or waited by the mailbox for a red envelope, we say thank you. Okay, couple of things. This is good for business. That's all it is. Business. That's all this is we're talking about here is business. Okay, these are all for shareholders. Now, look, I get it. It's not sexy. It's not great. But they are a publicly traded company. All that being said, they're still hurting a lot. They may be the leader, but they are still hurting a lot. And I think that they realize that. And that's why they're starting Avenue, ad supported tiers and everything else and they have to make cutbacks, because they know that, look, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to watch more commercials on their platform and watch longer instead of saying, hey, I want this movie from Netflix. Let me pay $10 a month for that. And you having to wait and then get it and then send it back. That's what they want. And we'll see what happens with that. I don't think that's going to really make a mark one way or the other. This is more, like I said, this is more of a business story. So in that regard, then, fine. But it's good to see that they're growing still. And we'll see what happens with Netflix. I think once we start to see this ad-supported tier kick in and the password sharings kick in, that's when it's going to be interesting. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this? Do you really care about how many memberships Netflix has? Do you think it's just a business move? Or do you have stock in Netflix and you really like this? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay. So we're almost done with Netflix, guys. I promise we're halfway through. There were 4 stories here because of the earning calls. So we're going to get to, we got 2 more, as I said. So the next one we already talked about this. So what I might do is just skip this. So, what I think I'm just going to, so you know what? No, I'm not going to. I was going to skip it, but we're not going to. So once again, well, I'll just say this about it. Netflix is one of those things that started every good thing must come to an end, right? And That being said, Netflix, they started this whole thing with streaming. So eventually it's got to come to an end, right? So I'm not going to read this whole article and I'm not going to bore you guys with it. I'm just going to read a little bit of because part of it is the statement that I just read earlier. What I will say is this. I'm going to read this portion. Years before it streamed television shows or movies, Netflix launched with a simple idea: replace the outmoded DVD rental by delivering DVDs to customers and letting them mail them back when they're done. Okay, actually, the very first one was Beetlejuice. So the red envelopes, as you see, were everywhere in Blockbuster. And some would say this even put Blockbuster out of business. The DVD division has shrunk over the years. It had $146 million of revenue in 2022 and $183 million in 2021, down from $239 million in 2020. Well, of course, it's a pandemic, so I mean, people had to stay home. But it was Netflix's shift to a subscription-based model that turbocharged its growth and was quick to adapt an algorithm uh, recommendation to help identify what to watch rent next. So essentially, it's like your Netflix. Sorry, not Netflix, YouTube. When you watch something, let's say you watch one of my videos, right? And then what will end up happening is you'll get a lot of recommendations from YouTube for my other videos, essentially. Both the subscription model and recommendation engine forged by Netflix DVD division underpin its streaming business today. The DVD business was the subject of the most infamous moments in Netflix history, when it said it would spin off the DVD service as a new company called Quickster, separating its streaming from its DVD offerings. Customers revolted, and the DVD service stuck around as part of the main net service. Streaming, as it turns out, has grown faster than the DVD business, which relied on old fashioned infrastructure like warehouses, inventory, mail service to function. And it proves to be game changing because of the way entertainment was consumed, even for hardcore fans as they continue to use the service. Uh, Ultimately, while the end of Netflix's DVD division is the end of a defining era in the entertainment business, the writing has been on the wall for years. Netflix hasn't broken out many DVD subscriptions since 2019. Host Ted Sarandos has made it clear that the company had no intention of trying to prop it up. Um, once your primary role is to try to save a business, you're dead, he says in a March 2021 interview. When we made the transition from DVD to streaming, we never spent a minute trying to save the DVD business. Our future was always going to be streaming, and any effort we spent to try to save the DVD business was energy that wasn't being spent into the streaming business. Um, okay, so basically, this is good. I think people really didn't care about DVDs being mailed because it was one of those things where they had to wait for it. And we all like instantaneous things, anyways, right? So, and I understand from a business point of view, it's not the best. Um, it's not the best model because if you're losing money in this place, that means you're not putting your resources into another place. And that being said, so I understand why that now it was 20. It had a great run. It had a great run, and they're able to use those resources from the mailing out the video, the DVDs, and everything else, and put it into other things. I'll be curious to see what um, what it's used for and how it's used. So, anyways, guys, what do you think about Netflix finally stopping the DVDs coming to homes? Did you ever get any DVDs to Netflix or pay to have DVDs sent to your home from Netflix? If so, did you, what was it, one or two or three per month? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, this is the final story from Netflix and the final story of the day, I should add. And this is the one that I wanted to save for last because this I have a lot to say on and it really upset me. So, Sarandis is one of those guys that just doesn't care. And so when he makes a comment like this, I think there's a lot to a lot to say. So one of the biggest movies of the year for Netflix was Glass Onion. Okay. And when you have the CEO of the company come out and basically says, driving, this is he doubles down on theatrical release. Comes from our good friend Scott Mendelson on the Wrap. He says, this is a direct quote from him: driving folks to the theater is just not our business. So, um, Ted Sarandos was asked point blank in a Tuesday quarterly earnings call about resisting Netflix's current reluctance to give theaters conventional theatrical releases, a stance that has now put the company at odds with most of their streaming competition. The short answer is don't stop a horse in midstream. The film division is doing great, he says. They really are building uh, out some great films. The success of the Oscars for like All Quiet was great, and even better that there was the movies one so big and was so popular with fans. We're really happy with the investment in the film. Comments come as rivals companies such as Apple TV and Amazon Video reportedly made to invest, as I said earlier, $1 billion in theatrical targeted movies. Along with David Zaslav's stated preference for theatrical titles, this makes Netflix an outlier in prioritizing streaming premieres than a token then of theatrical commitment. Remember, there's a lot of ways to create and collect demand for film, he said. Driving folks to the theater just isn't our business. That gets my blood boiling just reading that. Netflix's reluctance to embrace theatrical for its films is slowly becoming a potential sore spot, both in terms of generating revenue and chasing awards season glory. However, going to direct to consumer isn't entirely illogical when you have a membership base as big as Netflix. As I just made mention, they just added to their membership and they have a ton of worldwide subscribers. It's really learning an advantage. He echoed Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters. We've been delivering that value to our members because of our reach and our scale to over 230 million paying members at our average revenue per member. It affords the opportunity to invest in these big movies. The biggest advantage that Netflix has over its rivals, along with being first on the block, is having a name synonymous with streaming. It's the size of the relative reliable viewer base. Its rivals chase just a portion of the marketplace and are dependent on big scale titles from their IPs, like Star Trek for Paramount Plus or Marvel for Disney and Star Wars. I think it's tempting to make comparisons between the services, Sarandon continued, but the other services don't have that scale. They don't have the revenue base or the viewer base to support with a single window the way we can support even big budget films with our single window on Netflix. Netflix rivals depend on mostly theatrical windows. Think the Batman on HBO Max or Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on Paramount, which in turn depends on an industry dominated by um, IP, marquee characters, and previously successful franchises. Netflix can get massive viewership from star-driven originals like Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston's Murder Mystery, Brian Reynolds' The Adam Project, and Sandra Bullock's The Unforgivable. Nevertheless, if Netflix holds firm and becomes the only outlier, they could have more of a challenge nabbing high-level talent who still favor the awareness and prestige that come with a theatrical release. Moreover, so many of Netflix moves are either star vehicles or big screen movies like Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Gosling, or even Leonardo DiCaprio, or in the case of Glass Onion, a smashing hit that was a sequel to a theatrical blockbuster. It's an odd disconnect, eschewing theaters from anything other than a brief promotional tool while capitalizing on actors, filmmakers, and genres that become popular via theatrical exhibition. And that's not accounting for the slew of flops like The Snowman or forgotten blockbusters like Bad Teacher that tend to dominate the top 10. Netflix needs theatrical movies more than they forsake multiplexes in their own house. Right now, Netflix does not need theaters for top tier viewership, but eventually those who make films for them may want a couple more weeks of massive membership. Okay, and I kind of butchered that article, guys, but you got the point. Um, Here we go. Let's talk about this because it's incredibly important. So basically, he is. I'm just gonna say it. He gave the middle finger to the theaters. He gave the middle finger to the theaters, and he said, "Fuck you, movie theaters." That's it. Um, I I I won't subscribe to Netflix. To be frank, um, we have Metal. Netflix needs more movies like Extraction and The Gray Man. Love both those films. So, okay, and yeah, the problem is Metal. One of the major problems is they don't market. They don't market it at all. So this film right here, Glass Onion, is a perfect example. Okay, they put that in theaters for 1 week. Now I saw the film in theaters. I was lucky enough to see it in theaters. It cost $90 million to make. It made $16 million um, in 1 week, and then they pulled it. And even Ryan Johnson said, "I wanted to have my movie in theaters for longer." Um, Knives Out made over $300 million globally, and it made them a ton of money. Um, Now I think, and this is just a hunch. Okay, I have no inside knowledge about this. I think that I think that what you're going to see is well, let's put it this way. Um, I think that a lot there's so many. Okay, how do I say this? Let me slow down here because I have a lot to say. Number one, it's a wrong move for Netflix not to put it in theaters. Straight up, straight up. Number two, Sarandis only cares about one thing, okay, and that's memberships. That's a fact. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, he's a greedy, greedy person. Okay. Number three, you may be getting these movies on your streaming platform, but you're never making any money back. Okay, because the other thing that Netflix doesn't do either, and if we're going to go down this road, okay, is let's talk about physical media. They rarely put anything on physical media. So if I like The Gray Man, for example, I can't go buy The Gray Man, okay? Or Extraction. I've got to watch it on Netflix, okay? They could make so much money on physical media. And, here's another thing, too. I'll say this much. All Quiet cleaned up at the Oscars. I think it won 5 or 6 Oscars. 4. I think it won 4 Oscars. I mean, it did much better than anticipated. That being said, if I'm the Academy, I say, look, unless you keep it in there for a certain minimum amount of time, you're not eligible. It's that simple. And I think that will. Amazon doesn't have a problem doing it, and they're one of the arguably the richest company in the world. Apple doesn't have a problem doing it, and they're one of the top 3 richest companies in the world. And they've already said they're going to invest $1 billion in the theater for box office movies, theatrical films. So why the hell can't Netflix do this? This is what I don't understand. And it boggles my mind because you have all of this talent. You spend $150 million on the Irishman, okay, and you make nothing back. Nothing. You spend 200 million, whatever it is. I don't know how much you spend on Extraction or The Gray Man or anything else, but I know you didn't make that money back. This just so he can keep his subscribers. That's fine. I'll never pay for Netflix. Never. Because at least Amazon and Apple, we're going to invest in it. Okay? I just. The movie theaters were that close. That close away from going away. The pandemic. We are going to have a huge summer coming up. It's the start of 3 weeks. Okay? 2 weeks. You have a film right now of Mario that's going to be making $1 billion. It's made almost $400 million in domestic, and you can't put your movies in theaters. Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, you see people going to the movies. It doesn't make any sense. The thing about Netflix is this: they care about subscribers because they'll get your money. They care about the ad tier, which ad tier you're going to subscribe to, because, and for the most part, okay, most people are going to do the higher base one because they don't like ads, so they don't want to have to watch ads, so they'll do the higher ones. And, you know, that's what they care about, and the money. Okay? So they have to dump something like the DVDs, okay? These, which have been around for 25 years, and look, there may not maybe a market anymore. Fine, that's okay. He's just cutting costs, is what he is. Okay. So I mean, it's a simple premise of it's just, and look, I get it's a business. I get it's a business. Okay, but he's just greedy. Here is my big thing. Okay, here is where I come down as a film lover, as a feature film lover. Okay, going to the movies makes memories, whether you see something once or 3 times or whatever. Here's where I come down. And if I were the Academy of Motion Pictures, see, you're on a slippery slope. Okay, because here's the problem. Coda won Best Picture a couple years ago, and that was basically a streaming movie. I mean, I think it got a theatrical release for a little bit, and I could be wrong about that. Nonetheless, I think what the Academy needs to do, okay, is I think they need to say you have to have your films in theaters for minimum 30 days. If you don't, you're not eligible for the Oscars. It's that simple. You can put all these restrictions and requirements and everything else. Okay? If you're a streaming service, I'm talking about Amazon, I'm talking about Apple, I'm talking about Hulu, I'm talking about Netflix, I'm talking about Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus doesn't really do originals, so forget about them. Okay? But those 3, Amazon, Apple, and Netflix, if you want to be any chance to be nominated for the Academy Awards, you have to keep it in there at least a month. The theatrical window is 45 days. If you don't, you do not. You could have it in there, I don't know, 3 weeks, and it could be a great film. And what will end up happening is it won't get recognized. It's that simple. Because what you're doing is you're playing by a different set of rules. You're playing by a different set of rules. And you're saying, oh, I can do this, but they have to do that. And it's like, wait a minute. Why? Why is this right? Everybody has to play by the same set of rules. You can't move the goalposts. Okay? Netflix is going to be Netflix. Here's the other thing too, and Scott touched on it in the piece. I'll be very curious to see how. And by the way, I want to just go back to the piece real quick, because all these actresses and actors he named, okay, So let's talk about the movies he was discussing here briefly. Okay, Jennifer Aniston has done. She did an Apple TV series. Okay, Adam Sandler has been out of the culture for a long time. Okay, yes, he did Uncut Gems. Yes, he did Hustle, but those were both for Netflix. Okay, because he signed a huge deal. Ryan Reynolds is a big name, but people remember him as Deadpool. Okay, Sandra Bullock, I would argue this: she's not the draw she once was. 15 years ago, she was an incredible draw. You could put her in anything, and she'd be a huge draw. Today, not so much. I'm not saying she's not a good actress. She's a phenomenal actress. She's an Academy Award winning actress. I'm saying she's not the draw. The point is this: besides Ryan Reynolds, which, by the way, okay, Free Guy was great. I love Free Guy. Okay, I love Free Guy. But beyond Free Guy and beyond Deadpool, that's it. Now he's worth almost $1 billion. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, he doesn't need the money. But that being said, okay, the things that he touched on, okay, it's one of those things where nobody's gonna. They're no draws. They're not draws anymore. So the long and short of it is this: Netflix can go about their business. I hope the Academy cracks down, and I hope they do something about it before this next Oscar season. Because if they don't, and Netflix comes out with another great film, um, he's just gonna, point it in your face and say, "Ha ha." So, anyways, all right. Now that was my rant. I'm sorry, guys. I just had to get that because just because you're the biggest and the baddest in the yard doesn't mean you always have to be the biggest and baddest in the yard. You can say, you know what, we're going to give to others. We're going to do things for others. And if Netflix did this, they go, whoa, they really had to change your heart. But Sarandis is all about money. He's all about memberships. I mean, all you got to do, he's getting rid of the password. He had no idea what the Pandora's box he opened by not doing the subscription, the password sharing. No idea. No idea. Because they are going to start dropping like flies. They will. So, but he doesn't care about that because he gained almost 2 million subscribers. Anyways, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to blow off like that. It's just. Anyways, that's all the stories I have for today. But just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. Number one, if you want to support me, head on over to patreon.com. Basically, there's 2 levels there. One is $5 a month. You'll get Mob Mondays. The second one is for $10 a month. That's it. You'll get Rewatch Wednesdays as well. The first one is The Departed for Mob Mondays. The other one is Steve Jobs. So you'll get both those. If you want to do something on a little lesser level, there is that join button that you're seeing down there on the channel. $2.99 a month. Very, very cheap. It's less than a gallon of gas. Super chats if you want to, that little thing. Anybody who's watching the super chats. But yeah. So, okay, guys. Like I said, so any questions here? So, how did you feel about the ending of The Mandalorian? I give it about an 8.5. I gotta be honest, I didn't watch it, Mel. So, I have not watched the last 3 episodes. What ended up happening was I got really not distracted. I just didn't like it. So after the episode, I think I've only watched up to episode 5, and I gave it the chance after Coruscant one, but I'm like, no, this just isn't for me. There were a lot of problems with it up until that point. I will probably go back and watch it just to say I have. Now, if they want to actually, if they are building up to something bigger, it has to be an Avengers type of movie. I don't particularly agree with it. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with, excuse me, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the end of the season because they already have the fourth season written. So Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau already have the fourth season done. So we'll see how that works. And if Pete, that's the thing too. I don't know if they're going to make it, if they're going to greenlight it, because season 3 just didn't do that well. There were a lot of problems. So to answer your question, though, I have not seen it. I get it. I really do. I didn't like the fact that Grogu came back so early. Yeah, that was one of my major problems. That was my major problem. Okay. I had watched so I watched the first 2 seasons, as everybody had, and I had not seen the Book of Boba Fett. And from there, I went, okay. And I saw him come up in season 3. I'm like, what's going on here? And I went, okay. And so I just let it play out. And I don't, yeah, I mean, I think right now it's just there for a marketing tool. That's all. It's there for a marketing tool. And they have to have something. Because, Pete, look, if Grogu is in there, people just tune out. Baby Yoda is, or Grogu, or whatever his name is now, he's not the same draw that he once was. Okay. And I think that when they realize that now, And that being said, I think they're going to make some changes. So I will do this in the very near future because I have a ton of stuff I'm going to watch and record and everything else. I am going to sit down and watch the rest of The Mandalorian because I want to see what happens. And I think it will be interesting to check that out. But guys, to see what happens here, you're going to want to come back, as I said. So you guys were great, and you picked the 2 videos for the next month for Rewatch Wednesday and Mob Mondays. I'm going to be doing, as I said at the top of the show, I'm going to be doing The Untouchables, 1987 Kevin Costner, Robert De Niro film, and then Training Day. So if you like those 2 movies, you're going to want to subscribe. Yeah. And don't forget, guys, Mission Impossible. I'm going to be doing a Mission Impossible rewatch. I've already watched the first one. I've yet to record it. I'll probably do a quick live stream. And then that will be the first episode will air June 2nd. And then we're going to do that one after the other. And yeah, guys, got all these movies coming out. I know people have popped in here, here and there. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button because that's the only way this gets out to the masses. And I want this to get out to everybody. So, okay. This was a supersized show today. As I said, sorry about the technical difficulties yesterday, and looks like those are behind us. And stay tuned for the rest of the year. So, okay. On that note, I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.